Hello and welcome to PM Express, and today we have two major shows in one show. We are looking at the COCOBOD fertilizer scandal, and we are also looking at the Ghana Food Systems Conference, which is coming on Tuesday 27th. Big stories all in one show, and we have to cover it. We're going to definitely start with the COCOBOD issue. I'm sure if you live in Ghana, you've heard by now the former CEO of COCOBOD and Mr. Adongo have been hauled to court for willfully causing financial loss. Protagonists of the NDC have trooped to court to say, look, they're going to back their man. They are not going to let their man go down without a fight. What do you say about that? When I come back, that's what we're talking about. My name is Nana Ansakwa IV, Chief of the Little Republic of Akomodu Masan, your favorite host. Don't go away. When we come back, we're looking at corruption and other matters. Well, let me introduce my guest to you before we go back and listen to some sounds to set the conversation rolling. With me in studio is Bright So, who's a Senior Research Officer, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. Bright, thank you very much for coming. First timer, so we're going to find him, Ambante Musa, since he's the first timer on PM Express, but we look forward to hearing him and his decision. But let's listen to some conversations from Kofi Adams, Felix Fusukwachi, and then we'll set the conversation rolling.
The accused persons have merely been charged. They have by no means been pronounced guilty. And so I think that due process should take its course. And we await patiently for the final outcome of the trial. And I'm sure that every reasonable Ghanaian would agree with me that it is not proper to conduct media trials of people because people's reputations and images are at stake. Whilst the state reserves the right to prefer charges against people and bring them to trial, it is imperative that everything is done to protect the image and reputations of the people involved. For that reason, due process has to be complied with strictly. And I would have thought that it was in the courtroom that those charges would be read, so that all of us would be familiar with exactly why they have been brought to court. But when you have an instance where the government side leaks the charges to the media with a view to conducting a media trial, I don't think that it meets the requirements of decent and professional conduct.
We have assessed our evidence and we have presented a case. Whoever says it's witch hunt is clearly entitled to that opinion. At the end of the trial, the judgment should be able to determine whether it is witch hunt or.
Thank you very much. So that is it. Let me come straight to studio. Bright, I'm sure you followed this issue, but I just wanted to start from the angle where it's on both sides. I remember once upon a time when Kennedy Japan was arrested. Okay, it wasn't corruption charges, but I'm just looking at how we troop to go and get members of party members. How does it all go up, particularly when you're looking at it when there's a corruption tax? Should they sit at home and let the law take its course, or should they go and show solidarity?
Well, I mean, I think it's an important case you brought up, mentioning particularly both sides, and this speaks to this whole polarization of the nation. Everything is NDC, NPP. So if you have an accused person in court and one party feels that we have to stand by him, and it's okay for people to support somebody when they believe in his innocence and for the person to court. But for the rest of us Ghanaians, discerning people, we need to be able to separate the facts from what is going on, which is that we have somebody that has corruption charges leveled against the person. We've done the proper thing as a democracy, a country that obeys the rule of law, brought the person to court. Now, it's important that we do not distract from the issues by labeling witch hunting, all these sort of issues, really, and that we actually follow the case and see what, like the Attorney General said, whatever the ruling is what the court has decided. And I think that's what we should be interested in at this moment.
Witch hunting, is being blown in the air. From your organization point of view, is it one of those things that they should let bygones be bygones, or is one of those cases where, look, let's look to see if there's something went wrong here?
I think political parties will be political parties, and anytime they want someone in opposition, they're going to be looking at this witch hunting tax. What's important for us is that the Ghanaians, the citizens there, sitting in their homes, wherever they are able to separate these issues and say, look, somebody may be a member of a political party, but if they are wrong and they fall foul of the law needs to take its course. So that's why the fact the person is a member of your party, if the person has corruption charges level against the person, should the person be found guilty, you should be able to separate that from some witch hunting allegation by the position that the government seems, to be going on. And I'm quite surprised with this particular instance because, we've had just about 2 cases. And for me, the number 2 hardly meets that proof to be able to make a story on and say we are being witch hunted when we've only looked at 2 cases. So I'll, speak to every Ghanaian and say, let's not distract from the issue. Let's focus on these are corruption charges. It's going to be tried in a court of law by the system of governance that we have chosen. Let's focus on that and, let's forget about these witch hunting issues for now.
But have you noticed that in all this trend, and it happens both ways, that the majority of people who troop there are, the more the unemployed, because I doubt, people in their offices, I'm not saying nobody in the office, there might be a few, party gurus who will go and repeat it, but a great percentage of people there are those who didn't get the opportunity to enjoy the leisures, and they are the ones that will eventually come there. Is it that we are not educating them to say, look, when the grass was greener, you enjoyed your new, now that it's drying, you want us to come?
You made quite a point, and the education bit is lacking. It's like it needs to be going real down to the grassroots. Among all the theories of conflict, my favorite is the Lamping proletariat paradigm, which basically says that for there to be any conflict or any issue, any chaos, there's this section of the public that is, like you mentioned, not very well educated in the issues that people can sort of whip up to support whatever group that they're interested in. And that's a very dangerous segment to have. And that's why, of course, people keep talking about trying to fight unemployment and other reasons. So all these people can have something to do, able to focus on the issue at hand. And it's very important that we educate these people that corruption takes away from the nation. So when somebody's been is in court for corruption charge, that's a very serious charge against the person. If found to be true, these charges that the Attorney General has leveled, this means that some amount have been taken that belongs to all of us that we all contribute to, that one person or a small group of people have taken to be their own and taken out of the state coffers. And we should all be interested in that, rather than probably the little money we get from, being transported to some side support some particular political group or some agenda that they may have. And it's important that we do that education and people begin to realize that corruption is something that affects all of us. And when the cases come like this, we do not take particulars to that.
Let me go to Skype. Joining us via Skype is Michael Bwedi, who's Corporate Affairs Manager for GII. Michael, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Nana, and thanks to your listeners.
Very good. And Mike, let me start with you. Is it that we don't trust the judicial system? That's how come when, our party members are, have to go to court or get arrested, we all go there. I don't know what that changes. Maybe the law then thinks that, well, because of how much support they have, we have to set them free or skew the case. What is it? Is it that we don't trust the judicial system?
I think we need to look at this from 2 angles. We have the legal processes that are taking place, and then we also have the case of the politicking that also takes place, and these are very normal things that happens all the time. Insofar as the individuals that are being charged are political persons, there are people who had functioned within a certain political space. You will definitely have people who will express solidarity. I make the point that the right to assemble is a given in the Constitution, so it is very difficult for anybody to criticize the right to assemble. The only thing that we can do is that the right to assemble is also done within the confines of the law, and therefore, and insofar as the law has not been broken, you don't have to worry too much. The issue of corruption and the trial thereof is a matter of law, and so therefore, if we allow the law to take its course without fear or favor, as for the assembling and the amassing at the court, it won't change anything. In fact, we have seen it since we came into the Fourth Republic. And I don't believe that it has swayed the outcome of these court processes to favor the accused, or it has swayed it to favor the prosecutors. It has very little bearing on the whole process. The most important thing is that we must allow the law to take its course, and the judiciary must execute justice without fear or favor.
Before I come to studio, one of the complaints is that the charges were already leaked to the media during a media trial. Do you think it has any bearings on what the court decisions will be?
Well, I think that in our context, or probably in all the countries where rule of law is made to work, there are two courts. There is a court of public opinion, and there is the law court, which is a regular court that we all know. And they all work, independent of each other. I don't think that if one is guilty and the prosecutor does his work well, the court of public opinion will sway the outcome. I don't think that there is anything strange about it. And we are all crying for the right to information, and therefore, if information is out there or is made available, I think we shouldn't worry too much. We shouldn't criticize the fact that we have access to information. What must concern us as a people is that the trial is done properly according to law, and then the people are allowed to defend themselves. The prosecution must do their work. The investigation should be tight. They have evidence, produce enough evidence to warrant the prosecution, so that at the end of the day, it will not be a waste of taxpayers' money and people's time, and the court's time, actually. But then, in fact, if indeed the state had lost resources, the resources would be retrieved and the sanctions thereof emitted, if indeed there is the prosecution has a good case. But other than that, all the other things that happen, the massing of people, the solidarity, for me, I think it's politics, and it doesn't have any bearing. We shouldn't worry about it.
Okay, stay there for me, Michael. Let me come to studio to Bright. Bright, do you think we are building a culture where now the MPP is in power and they know that, well, if I'm also in public office, because now there's another chief executive there, and if he knows, look, my party people will come and give me that defense, you sort of giving people to know that, look, I'll always have that backing. Even if I did something wrong, my people will come and support me because they will also do the same. Do you think we are creating that culture of shelter, whether it's right or wrong?
Well, that's why I'll differ a bit with my colleague Mike, because for me it is worrying. Because you begin to ask yourself, when there's a corruption case and people have truth, say I'm going to show solidarity with someone. Like I said, it may be because you believe in the person's innocence. But again, when you hear the sort of comments that are being parroted, as though if the government has some agenda to just prosecute or persecute people of the other device simply because you are in government now, that does not augur well. I mean, there are a lot of people watching. There are a lot of citizens following this. And so you begin to realize that, again, you are putting the nation on that divide where everybody or every person who supports the NDC that's now in position should start thinking, well, they are coming after us and they are coming after the party, instead of looking at the facts of the case or the allegations being leveled and thinking, is this something that, that are very true? Did this person actually take money from the state? What does it mean? So we are not learning from this. And once you take that angle, whether that polarization, then that learning element is lost. That education element is lost. It also takes away a bit from the severity of the case. And that's what worries me.
Let me stay with you. You see, the people who should have worried the most, those who desperately need free education, those who need free NHIS, those who need all this social intervention which this money would have gone to, are those who troop there the most and seek, the solidarity. Those whose kids are in Switzerland studying and stuff, they don't come. It's those who need it. So that's why I was earlier on saying maybe the education is not going down well.
Yeah. But I mean, if we take away this group that we've been focusing on, I mean, also for a number of people also, like you mentioned, those are their homes, those who have a few of these resources and comfortable to some extent. You realize that even with them also, they may not be there in person, but may be holding the same sentiments as the people who actually show up in court to show solidarity.
They probably rent the buses.
Again, then the issue again is that they are missing the point. We are having a corruption trial here. It's a court of law, a competent one for that matter. We need to be able to trust in our court of law and say that if the gentleman really is not guilty, the court should be able to exonerate him and trust in that process. What sort of solidarity are we showing? What is the point of that solidarity right now when there's a court case going? And that, for me, that's what worries, because again, then you have only two sections of the public there. Those who support the position, I mean, the NDC government saying, well, we are being persecuted, instead of looking at the facts of the case. And the other side will probably think, yeah, this is how we should deal with these people, instead of, again, looking at the facts of the case and looking at the fact that we have a corruption case that's going to be tried. We need to all follow up and, learn something from it. And that's what worries me a lot.
Michael, is it a case where, look, if we don't go to the court and monitor the processes, the judiciary may, skew this case not in our favor, and therefore we have to be there and listen and watch closely to make sure they do the right thing?
I would say that, if we lose sight of the fact that there is a political dimension and there are also the legal or due process dimension, then we will be worried about the commentary that are passed on, say, people within the where the accused is coming from would be saying that, well, this is witch hunting, and then we say that, no, well, if they say that they are not helping the process. You see, the thing is that if they don't say that, then it hurts their political fortunes, and therefore, while they play politics, in fact, they would definitely play politics. Now, for us, what should interest us is that, are we making the law work? You see, it is only the law that will give us the sort of outcome or the expectations that we all have. That if the law is made to work and the prosecution does their work well within the confines of the law, and then the accused is made to defend themselves without fear and no intimidation, the outcome will, 1, serve as education, 2, will serve as deterrent, and then 3, will also help the country recoup or retrieve the proceeds of crime. It is only the law, in all these equations, it's only the law and how the law is made work or implemented that matters. Like I said, the commentaries will come. You cannot take it away from them. You cannot stop anybody from crying wolf. And therefore, let's not worry too much about the commentaries that people pass. When the tables turn today and other people from the current administration are being prosecuted, you would find people from the current administration crying wolf. What matters the most is that in all these, is fair trial, are people being given fair trial? Did the prosecution do well with investigation? And does the prosecution have a good case as evidence available for the court to pronounce judgment? All these things are the things that matters. The rest doesn't, for me, we shouldn't worry at all, given the space and the kind of politics that we have in this country.
Michael, let me come in here. Should we build a society where that says, listen, yes, we entrusted this office to you, or yes, we entrusted this party to you to do right. If you've gone and slapped somebody, if you've gone and uttered a bad word, or if you've gone and mismanaged it, that's up to you, because that's not what we put you up there. So we're only going to be with you if you are on the right. But if you deliberately go on the wrong, you're on your own. So that when we entrust offices and parties and institutions to persons, they know that, listen, if I go wrong, I'm on my own, and therefore I should stay straight. Should we be able to raise the bar to that level?
You see, yes, this is the ideal situation, but we are not in the ideal situation. You see, things have happened over the years. We cannot pretend that all of a sudden people would learn and people would know and people would do the ideal situation. What we have now is that over the years, people have not allowed the anti-corruption legislations to work and work effectively. People had done very little education, and therefore there is very little by way of knowledge amongst the populace on what to do and what not to do, especially with regards to the fight against corruption, with regards to the conduct of public officers and the expectations thereof. You see, so as we have it now, what should we do going forward? I believe what we should do is that we should allow the law to work. We should also stop playing politics with with prosecution, and therefore we shouldn't be seen to be shielding people of our own, and then when it comes to opponents, we want to enforce the law. You see, some fairness should be allowed to work, should be seen to be working. And I believe that with time, when people are prosecuted and they are given fair trial and judgment is pronounced, and the country begins to recoup lost resources, these things will stop. It will serve as deterrence. People will be better educated and better informed, and I think that we will be able to make progress with the fight against corruption. Anything short of that, if we say, look, we are discouraging people, can we do? The only exception is to use force. Is that what we want now? No. The laws to work rather than to use brute strength to chase these people. So let's allow them to express their solidarity and all they want to do, but let ensure that they do that within the confines of the law. And when they do that and they see that, look, in spite of all the standing in the sun and the chanting, it didn't work, it didn't help in any way, the law was seen to run its course, and judgment was passed, and therefore we believe in the trial, we believe in the outcome of the court processes.
Michael,
someday these things will stop.
Michael, thank you very much for that insight. That was Michael Boadi, Corporate Affairs Manager, GII. But in studio, Bright, so Bright, you know, most of these charges are always in the previous. Always, anytime you hear political trials or high office trials, the great percentage is the previous. They never seem to, you know, arrest their own, or while the thing is going on, see anything wrong. Could that be where the suspicion always comes from, that, oh, they are trying us because we are unable to try ourselves?
Definitely. I mean, that's where the suspicion comes from. And I think that's the reason why we need to be excited about the OSP, the Special Prosecutor. If it was Martin Amidu that was trying this, I think there'll be very few people who, I mean, some people will still cry foul. But then you look at that setup and say, this is an independent body. This is not the government's way. This is an independent special prosecutor that's trying the case. And that's why I'm excited that we have such, you know, an office created, and I can't wait for him to start working and taking out some of these cases, so some of these witch hunting allegations, you know, can be put to bed.
Because clearly you can't say that somebody has directed Martin Amidu.
I mean, even if you do, it's an independent office. There will still be the allegations, and I tell you, it will still come. But then we will tell that it's an independent office, unless you can prove that, you know, he's getting some money or some that's swaying to another side. We all have to take that these are independent, you know, special prosecutor that is at work.
You think generally the public would have more trust with prosecutions coming from that direction? I
think the character of the man is also something that will give us a bit of confidence in this situation. We are seeing a gentleman who worked in the NDC administration who has been given a position by an NPP administration. And for the most part, a lot of people who know you can attest to that this is somebody who likes to be very fair and firm. So again, also the character of the man is something that we have confidence in, and we believe that when he starts working, we can see cases from both sides of the aisle being tried, and that should bring some confidence to these sort of prosecutions.
I mean, what should the current government do in order that in 4 or in 8 years' time, when they are not in power, we don't come back to this same table that, now let's go back and bring, you know, the former COCOBOD boss, let's go and bring the former this boss, let's go. What should they do?
And I believe that often when we have leaders like the president, I mean, I think we've had a lot of good men in that position. It's often the people they have to work with. And that's when you cannot discount, you know, a few corrupt individuals here and there, because you're working with a lot of people. Obviously, a few of those are going to be bad nuts. And when they do these things during the administration, even when you do not see it a few years' time, you know, because the new government, the probing is higher, and obviously some of these issues are going to come up. So I think what is most important is to build that structure, that independent structure that we can all trust in, that, you know, these people are doing their work regardless of the bipartisan bit of it. And that's why I think we should all give our support to that office. We should all, you know, ensure that it's set up properly, set up independent in terms of funding and resources, and let's put our trust in the special prosecutor and see how that works out.
Thank you very much. That was a bright so there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we are looking at the Ghana Food Systems Conference. And once it's food systems, literally from the farm to the fork. So from the farm to your plate to the kitchen, every process that happens, the quality seeds, the amount of fertilizer, the type of fertilizer, the transportation, preservation, availability, everything that has to do with food calculates into the food systems. I think is one of the huge things to tackle, but indeed the conference is tomorrow. Let us hear what they want to talk about. So stay tuned, we are coming straight back. Well, thank you. Now moving straight from corruption onto the farm, looking at the food systems, an equally important subject. As we've always agreed that that's our blessings, and if we focus on it, we will make it. With me in studio is Charles Nyaba, who is the Peasant Farmers, member of the Peasant Farmers Association. Charles, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And then our own brother, Edward Kariwa, General Secretary, General Agric Workers Union. Edward, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Nana.
Let me start with you, Charles. Briefly, for those who don't know what food systems is, when they say food systems, what are they talking about?
Thank you, Nana. And let me say good evening to the listeners, to our farmers and all our partners who are implementing this conference on the Ghana food systems. When we talk of food systems, we are looking at activities that take place from production, from harvesting, from processing, distribution, until it gets to the fork or the table of the consumer. Normally, when we talk about agriculture or production, it's always easy to focus on only the production, ignoring all other complementary activities that ensure that we sit in Accra, yet a food which is produced in somewhere, a village in Tamale, or in Nkranza, or in the Shehu show, or whatever, gets here. We have other actors or agents, like transport operators, market agents. We also have financial institutions, extension services, input suppliers, who come together to ensure that farmers are able to produce and the food get to our table in Accra. So when we talk of food system, we talk of all the activities that goes into production, transportation, until the food gets to the consumer.
Edward, is this an ambitious conference? Ambitious to even tackle it?
Well, let me say good evening to our viewers all over the world, particularly our members in the rural areas. I think that the conference is rather long overdue. You know, this is also one of the areas we have not paid attention to interrogate the system. The system is made up of parts that are linked, many activities that are linked until food reaches the table of the consumer. Now, because we have failed in the past to deal with each part of the system, to address the challenges on each stage of the production system, then we have difficulties. For instance, what sense does it make to invest in production and then after harvesting you lose so much of it through post-harvest losses? You know, what will you gain after production? You cannot even market it, you know, or you market it at a price that is far, far lower than your production cost, you know. And then how do we also produce and not ensuring that quality is there? Because without quality, you know, why do we eat food? Why do we produce? Why do we spend money to buy agricultural produce. We do that to enhance our health, yet most of the food that we eat, depending on how it is stored, it is preserved, it tends to be the wrong food for us to eat, and it gives us health problems. So all these things, we need to look at them very well. And then it is after looking at these things that we can now consider where are we not doing well. And then that will also help us to be critical about what we bring from outside the country. Because we have a sense of knowing what is good, interrogating our own system. For that matter, we will also be more vigilant on whatever comes into our country.
Let me step you on whatever comes into your country and come to Charles. Charles, the percentage of food that gets spoiled on the farm and the percentage of food that we import still don't seem to be able to balance it out. And I wonder how the food systems can correct this, because we hear people say, oh, I imported watermelon. Somebody saying, oh, my watermelon is getting rotting. So, I mean, how do we balance this?
Yeah, so that is the challenge we are trying to actually identify, and then we see whether we can find mitigation measures. If you take yam, for instance, we have 60% post-harvest losses averagely.
60%.
60%. So it means if you produce 1,000 yams, you lost 600 due to post-harvest losses. If you take maize, you have between 15% to 30% that is going wasted. If you take sorghum, you have between 5% to 15%. If you take tomatoes, we spoke to tomatoes farmers in Adan and then Kumadan and then Paga. According to them, there are instances that they can even lose 100% of all what is produced. Now, you come to Accra, where sometimes you buy one tomato for even 5 cedis. Yet the same thing, you go to where it is produced and there's no market for it. You take watermelon, go to Nkranza today, there's abundant watermelon. They even does it to you for free. And you come to Accra, we have to go to South Africa, we have to go to Cote d'Ivoire and other places to import the same food for our urban consumers. So we are thinking that it's about time we begin to move away from only focusing on production, but we should also consider how can we preserve this little that we produce. How can we ensure that what is produced is evenly distributed to the urban consumers? Apart from distribution, we are also looking at consistency in production. Because there are certain periods in the year that you go to a village, there is so much food and we can record glut and other things. Yet, 3 months after production, you go to the same place and they have to buy food from imports and other things. So all these things, we think that we need to re-examine. Now, that examination is very important because the future of smallholder farmers cannot be predicted for now, because we don't know when we follow this path, in the next 10 to 15 years' time, what will be the future of smallholder farmer, because the population keeps increasing, the land size is becoming smaller, the soil is becoming infertile, climate change is setting in. So this food system is actually to examine the policies and where we are going. If we follow this path, how will the future be like? So that is the main focus of the discussion for these food systems.
Edward, I really come, I don't know, maybe because I'm not a farmer, but it sounds scary. It's such a huge, comprehensive, it's a whole entity. So should we say, let's say, choose 3, plant crops and maybe 3 animal, maybe fowl, maybe cattle, and maybe, I don't know, grass cutter, and then maybe maize, sorghum, and something, and say, look, we are starting with this, and then see it through. Oh, because otherwise, you know us, we will speak all the big English, get the finest carpenters to give a shelf, and then we'll put it on.
Yes, this is the way to go. We have been at the forefront of asking policymakers to be focused. You have to be selective, you have to have targets, and then you have to have time-bound limits. You can't subsidize everything about agriculture, but you must identify where you have got the capacity to produce. For instance, if you take rice production is such that it's an area we must focus. One, the population is increasing. There's also increased urbanization. And what it means is that people will move away from their traditional meals, to eating rice. And rice also have different dishes that you can get out of it. And it takes a shorter time to prepare. As people move into the middle income, urbanization, population increase, and so on, the per capita consumption of rice will continue to go up. So you can't depend on imports to deal with your domestic rice demand. So we need to focus on rice. For instance, have a fund, allocate a fund, get machinery, get equipment to target the increased production of rice. Now, when we are doing that, then we'll be looking at the policies that also allow rice inflow into the country, because they undermine our production policies here. So we begin to reduce the imports into the country, matching it with our capacity to increase production. So over a longer period of for about 2, 3, 5 years, you will see that our capacity to produce...
Everybody simplifies the issue of rice growing and rice processing. But for the number of years from Achampons at the Yime till now, I mean, if it was that simple, surely we would have been in there by now.
It's simple, except that we don't have commitment in this country. Because all those policies in the past, we have abandoned them. Look, in 2003, the government of Ghana at the time, through the budget, imposed some taxes on poultry and then rice. But they were forced to abandon the imposition of the taxes after Parliament has approved and passed it as a law, to the extent that we had to get the poultry farmers to go to court because we saw it as a breach of the law, because you can't pass a law and refuse to implement it. They won that case. I'm just raising this point to show that it's lack of commitment. Who prevailed upon government at the time to lift or to withdraw the implementation of that particular tariff? But we believe that because of our development partners, some of them, they give us bad advice. They give us bad advice. And it's also about the fact that we looked outside more to finding solutions to our problems than sitting and reflecting and then looking at our problems and then committing ourselves to them. So one thing is that, one, we don't implement policies to the letter, and we don't also commit ourselves to the policies until we see the maturity of them. That's why there are many abandoned policies in this country, whether they are structures, building structures you find in the schools or in town area or district assemblies or anywhere, you find them, we abandon them. We go and start new projects. When it comes to policies, it's the same thing that we do. So the agricultural policies over the years have not been consistent. We have not kept to them until their objective is achieved. And that is the problem. So it is easy, except that we are not committed to implementing the policies to the letter.
I mean, Charles, so what would this conference seek to do? Seek to start a policy formulation or just get the conversation going? What is it going to do?
Yeah, before I come to that, let me go to your earlier question that whether we need to focus on a selected crops or we need to take a wholesale because we've been doing this. You see, one unique thing about Ghana, if you compare to other sub-Saharan African countries or even the developed country, is that you can go to a community and that community will have a balanced diet that we talk of food security without necessarily going to the next community, because you get everything on the farm. You are able to get your vegetables, you get your tuber, you get your fruit and what have you on the same farm. And that brings about balanced diet. So we are thinking that as long as government cannot take all the different crops and develop on them, at least we should be able to come up with a map that this particular area, if we are producing for industry, we can focus on that. By then, the food security crops that are sustaining livelihood of certain communities, we need to also find a way of supporting the communities to develop those ones for domestic consumption. But what we've not done much is rather to focus more on crops that our development partners are thinking those crops are of value to them. And then we develop those crops for export. I don't know if you are following the discussion in recent times. You know, the government has also introduced as part of the Planting for Food and Jobs a different program called Planting for Export and Rural Development. I went to Brown Half region, and then the focus was on cashew and then mango. You speak to smallholder farmers, and others are saying that, look, we don't even have enough land to produce crops for domestic consumption. You expect us to convert the few lands left for food production into mango and cashew. So as we also look at developing certain crops for industry and for export, we should also be thinking about our food security. Now, you talk about the conference, what the conference seeks to do. In fact, this conference is a bit unique compared to other conferences that we organize, in the sense that the conference brings together all the actors in the food chain. We have the traders, we have the transporters, those who go to interlands to actually bring the food, because after speaking to them, realize that they are facing major constraints. But all agriculture policies in Ghana that we developed so far has always focused on the farmer. Yet, if the farmer produces and the transport owner is not able to go there and convey the food to the nearest market, the food will get rotten there. So the conference identified all those people, and then we are bringing them on board. Now, we are not also leaving our input suppliers, like those who supply seed, fertilizer, and other agrochemicals, so that they are working. Now, we are also looking at hospitality industries, that the chop-by operators, restaurants, hotels. We are bringing all those people on board. And then the financial institutions who support all these people to create the linkages are there. And the government itself, those who are in charge of policy, we are bringing the 4 key ministries who are actually working directly with agriculture. We talk of Ministry of Food and Agriculture itself, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. They are all part of this conversation. The donor communities are also there. Now, just like I said earlier, the main aim of the conference is to assess the current activities of smallholder farmers, and then to be able to predict where the future lies for them.
Let me take a quick break, and then when I come back, I'll go to Edward and find out that, you know, land planning as to, do we have any policies to say, look, this land is reserved for, you know, corn, or this land is reserved for sorghum, this land is reserved for real estate, and so whether it's for you, Nana and Sakwa, or not, if you want to do anything on it, you can only do corn on it. Do we have any such thing? We're coming back. Well, we're looking at Ghana Food Systems Conference, and the theme smallholder farmers in Ghana food systems, particularly the future of them. But Edward, I just wanted to find out, all this will need land, and you know, are there any policies anywhere saying that, look, this area, you guys look at corn, you look at this, you look at that? Do we have any such thing?
Well, I doubt whether we have that. Even if we have it, the practice does not suggest that we have it. If we have something, it is the manifestations of that that will show that you have it. Now, when you move to any part of the country and you see the way land is being used, you will certainly appreciate that there is no specific use for the lands. I mean, it is not mapped, and then people do whatever they do. They farm to the river bed. They even mount machines on rivers. We just saw all those things. It tells you that we don't know what our lands are used for. Our rivers are part of the lands. And we have, not long ago, we've seen what the mounted machines in the middle of rivers, and everybody saw it, and we were appearing helpless. It's the same thing with the land use. Look, when you are moving from here to Cape Coast, you will just not find land. You can have, say, 60 acres running without a house there or houses there and so on. You know, you see houses being built on valleys. Then you ask yourself, why? So it's just, we are behaving as though land is always there, and land can be used for everything. When it comes to agriculture, there are some particular soils that are good for rice, given their moisture content, and then how water can run into those areas. That's why mostly rice is grown in low-lying areas. And then you have lands that are also very sandy, which can support certain crops. So certainly, we don't seem to have anything about mapping on what the lands should be. But it's not all that lost. We used to hear about Accra Plains. I don't know whether it's still there or not, because you can see that many of those lands have already been leased out to estate developers. But when you go to the hinterland, particularly the northern part, you see that where it is easier to see far into the ahead, you see that large tracts of lands are lying down. You know, government can begin to collaborate with the chiefs, community owners of that land, then to secure the lands and put them down. Yet, will allow investors to go and take those lands and negotiate with the chiefs and the people there to use the lands, you know. But, so it's not all that lost. We still have that opportunity. So it is possible.
Charles, I mean, we are 30 million now.
Yeah.
I mean, does it take into so does it affect whatever planning we had for food? If you are planning one, you should now be planting 3. I mean,
yeah, I think you know, population growth normally comes with a higher market for farmers. So if you look at all developed countries, before they started their development process, they try to first identify markets, and the market is where they send the food to. So Ghana, we are fortunate. I don't think population growth is necessarily bad. So what we need to do, or to take advantage of the growth in population, is how can we increase production in the rural areas to respond to demand for food in the urban areas. And that's why we've not been able to do much. So we can do this by developing the agriculture sector in the rural areas. When we do that, even that will also respond to creating jobs, because people will need to go there and involve in providing off-farm activities like processing, like marketing, like packaging, and other value addition. Now, when we do that, we further expand, because there will be businesses in the rural areas. The farmers will be able to make more money and then procure inputs and expand their production. So we end up supplying to the urban centers again. Now, because we are not able to do that, you see the youth moving away from the rural areas, coming to urban areas to look for jobs, which never exist. So there's pressure on food supply. So you have a situation where we have to import greater chunk of the food that we consume in the urban areas, like the poultry parts, rice, tomato concentrate, whilst we have opportunity to do same in the urban areas. So I think in going forward, one of the things that we'll be looking at is how can we improve rural activities to sustain the population and also to reduce movement of the youth into urban areas to look for jobs that never exist.
This is one conference that I would really want to be a fly on the wall to just listen and observe the concerns. And if you've been to an agric forum, that's where you see passion, real passion from people when they are talking from their hearts. They earn so little, they've done it for years, they still want to do it, and they're just crying out for the opportunities and the policies to allow them to do it. I say hats up to all those who are in the green business. So tomorrow, the Ghana Food Systems Conference will take off, and we pray to God that He will come up with some fantastic policies. But let me take this opportunity to say a big thank you to all those who supported in the Awodanswa Reading Project. That's the library and the Little Republic of Odumasa. I want to say thank you. And all of you who are coming on Wednesday to help repaint it and redecorate it, say thank you very much. The number to call is 020-8861-919. 020-8861-919. Give them a call, book yourself a place on the bus, and come to the Republic and get the library cleaned up as you set it up 2 years ago. But I want to say thank you to my green men in the studio who are behind the scenes making sure that there's food on our plate every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.